I'm just looking at all of you, and you know, the fact that we can get together here like this group into remote viewing, associated remote viewing, precognition. Ultimately, it's all about consciousness. Doing this, I think, is so terrific, and I feel really good about it. Okay, so let's start with some administrative stuff. The bathrooms are just out the door and to the right. The bowling alley off to the left over there. So, you know, if you ever want to get coffee or something like that, I see a lot of you have already figured that out. You can do that there. And then if there are any issues or questions or comments or things like that that come up, Jane, who stand up so they can see you, and Julie, those are the first ones to sort of contact about, you know, whatever things, you know, come up and you just may need some sort of help. So they're the first two to contact. Want to have fun, okay? Enjoy this remarkable capability that we all have. Now, off in the back there of people either use a blank sheet of paper or a sheet that, and I know some of you in the back can't read it, but the kinds of senses that you might use when you do remote viewing, you might ask about textures and colors and things like that. How many of you are brand newbies, have never done remote viewing or ARV? Okay, good. We will get into that this morning, so you'll be able to see that. This is our agenda. Now, when you checked in, you each should have gotten a folder like this. In it is the agenda. And we will be doing what we call confidence levels, and so you'll have a copy of that in there. And then we're going to be the first one we're going to be doing this morning, and it'll be more or less protocol that we'll be doing here in this conference. And the first one will and the others will all be sporting events, 4 baseball games and 1 horse race. So we'll be doing the ponies as well, and we'll be using associative remote viewing for that. So we will have a lot of fun with all that. Now, here is just a couple of years ago, I started this idea of having all the speakers show younger pictures of them. You know, we're all about, that's what you're seeing there. So I have a BA and an MS in physics from UCLA. I was president, vice president, subsidiary of Titan Corporation. I managed a group of 20 scientists, developed analyzing high energy problems of interest to the Department of Defense and NASA, like hypervelocity impact and nuclear weapon effects. So actually my whole career I've been in the business of doing predictions, using the classical equations, and now doing predictions using remote viewing and precognition. And I was president, and when I first started shifting over to this world, I started with a company called Physics Intuition Application. I did for many years, wrote things on e-zine, we called it that way back then, called Connections Through Time. And you can still find .com, but that's really inactive. I've now moved over completely to the Applied Precognition Project that's running this conference called APPI, and I'm president of that as well. Yeah, that's me. Okay, so I now want to really get into kind of the meat of belief systems. I think, as you all know, are really, really very important. In the book Search of Human Nature, Mary Clark, she defined worldviews as assumptions by which an individual makes sense of experiences. And I put the young picture there, of course, because this star being, you're experiencing things and you're trying to integrate and make sense out of it. This one is not me. This happens to be a grandniece, but it's amazing what they can do. There's experiences going on in there. Okay, so we're young. Now, Bertrand Russell, this goes back to 1921, and people, of course, have been thinking about consciousness and that sort of thing, you know, forever, oracles of Delphi. But believing is like the most mental thing we do. And by that, you know, it's like, how do you get this beliefs? How do you get this consciousness out of what he called mere matter? And yeah, there are 2 sides, and one side tends to be very intellectual, the left brain. The right brain is kind of the intuitive one. We really don't understand it. There are no physical models for it. They can measure things that are going on in the brain, but there's no physical model for consciousness. And Newton's laws, we don't have equations, even like quantum mechanics, which frankly we don't understand, but at least we have equations for it. Boy, where did that come from? Did I touch the screen? Oh boy. Yeah, wow. I need to turn that off. It's being a race, huh? Well, that I certainly didn't use that. Well, sorry about that. Yeah. What's that? Joe did it. I would like to get rid of that, of course. Is there an eraser or something of that sort? I'm sorry, say it again. Well, that gave me the next one. Control-E? Control-Z. No. Oh boy. Yeah. No, wait. Let me see. No, it's still there. I swear. You know, could someone have done it from? No, that's ridiculous. Okay. I don't know if from PowerPoint or Zoom. What's that? It's Zoom? Mike, you're a Zoom user. How do you get rid of it? Okay. So you think it's part of Zoom?
Try this right here.
Oh, annotate, and then there's an erase.
There's no control. It must be.
You're a genius.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so let's go back now to full screen. Get rid of the eraser here. Ah, there you go. Okay. There. First, I want to thank you for the help and your indulgence here. And so let's move on now. Okay, so now let's talk, which is our focus in terms of precognition. The distinction between the past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion, Einstein. The only reason for time is so that everything doesn't happen. It's as if all of your conscious moments are maybe already out there, but you only get to experience them one at a time. I want you just, that idea is a very significant one. And then Einstein came along and says, space, and that's what gravity is. String theory comes along and adds extra dimensions. What does that mean? Okay, we don't really know what that means, but in like extra dimensions to explain quantum mechanics and general relativity. Okay, now, why isn't this going away? Okay, we may have to live with that for a while too, Mike. That usually goes away. There we go. What I want to do now, I believe we're doing both in precognition, both with time and with consciousness, and our lives. I'm about to show you a model which in here. It's going to be intellectual, but as you'll see, it connects up with this key concept that consciousness is fundamental. So it's both intellectual, intuitive. I believe it explains theory of evidence theory. So let's say this blue circle represents a universe of collective consciousness, the UCC, and it contains everything consciousness touches, past, present, future. I even have to think like this, and people think like this, is because precognition is real. Time is not linear. The stuff is out there in the future now in some fashion. We don't understand, been explained in any deep way. Let's really get into what that means. So this UCC is everything consciousness touches, past, present, and future. So the outer boundary, because there is no outer boundary, because there's nothing outside. If you have any thought, you say, oh, maybe that's outside. Well, guess what? Consciousness touched it. There is no boundary to this UCC, which is a lot like ours is actually in the UCC. But the UCC has no boundary. It can't. Now, if there's no boundary, that implies no separation. This is the oneness. This is kind of the definition of oneness, harmony. There's no separations. And perhaps, as deep as in this idea that consciousness is fundamental, this would actually be a spiritual concept as well. Now, what do? We bring out things, so anything which exists, I want to call a thing. I don't know what to label it, so I labeled it a thing. But if it's come out, it can't have a boundary. It has to have what I'm calling a fuzzy boundary, because there are no separations in the UCC. So somehow, when we have this conscious moment right now, that's a thing, but it's fuzzy. It's not really well defined in terms of all the details. It can't be. Okay, so all things must have a fuzzy certainty. We've introduced the uncertainty principle, which is a fundamental principle of quantum mechanics. Okay, now also, since you can't really totally separate this thing, that's why we have a fuzzy boundary, UCC, which is this other concept of entanglement, which is the second big concept in quantum mechanics. Comes out naturally once you really take seriously, really completely left the UCC. And then somehow, and words begin to get hard here, but get the ideas. We're working in idea space here, some sort, because we are maintained outside of the UCC. You are not in a state of oneness right now. So you've got some sort of intent. Each of us are experiencing, in some fashion, a piece of the UCC, and that takes energy. Now, guess what? We live in a physical universe. It's got lots of things in it, space-time, energy, pencils, all kinds of things in the physical universe. Each of those are things. So its fuzzy boundary is really a collection of fuzzy boundaries of all the sub-things. Now, universe, which is where the UCC is really of ideas. The idea of space, the idea of time. And guess what? Equation for Newtonian physics, there was the idea of the flat Earth. The UCC contains the idea of the flat Earth. There are lots of ideas in there. Not all of them match the way we see the world now. Now we've got quantum mechanical equations, general relativity. And guess what? The future models are in there. And I just want to give you this sense of the red with the uncertainty boundary is like what you and I and each of us experience about the physical world. Remember, this is conscious to the UCC. So I'm just using that kind of image to have you understand that there's space-time, life, quantum mechanics, general relativity, all of that's in the UCC, but we're living it in our conscious moments here. It really exists because of this kind of fuzzy boundary, which is what the connection is with the UCC. Now, you are a conscious thing. I am a conscious, and we live in the physical world. But the way we live in the physical world, and time is a very important part of that, is we live with the now moment by now moment by now moment, right? You're hearing the sound, and then a now moment clearly has a fuzzy boundary. How long is a now moment in time? I don't really know, but I know I'm moving from one to another to another to another. That's really your life, a collection of all of your now conscious moments. I mean, that's how fundamental consciousness indeed is. Now you've got this entanglement energy, which is allowing you to stay in the physical world. There's this thing which we call the subconscious now moment. But guess what? There's something deeper. Where are your memories? Where are the memories of the future that precognition is all about? This is in the subconscious. Understand it, but we know it's there. Think about your last happy moment. Something comes up. Okay, where did it come from? Well, somehow that's connected with the UCC, and all of those. I claim and believe, and you're going to have to see how this integrates with you, that the time varying fuzzy boundary now. You're living in time, okay? The uncertainty principle, free will, are generated, exist in our physical world. I mean, if there wasn't this fuzzy boundary, everything would be there, you're one, right? If you were one, no fuzzy boundaries, no choices, nothing to do. I mean, the state of oneness must be pretty special, right? Nirvana, get to this ultimate state where they experience oneness, but then they're just there. There's no creativity, there's no choices. You need something like a fuzzy boundary to have choices. And that's also where creativity comes from. Okay, now we can call a communication channel between this place, this UCC, past, present, future, everything exists, and your conscious moment. There's some sort of communication channel that need that uncertainty, or you wouldn't have this experience of choices, this experience, these creative moments where CC, okay, and this is the way I think life works. Now, let's now see if we can connect this to our favorite subject of the next 3 days, which is pre-RV, associative remote viewing. The UCC obviously includes you and all of your now moments, right? Since it's got everything, all the conscious moments are in there, all of yours, all of mine. Hey, any other sentient beings in the universe, right? Guess what? All the ET's conscious moments are in the UCC as well, right? It's consciousness anywhere. Now, what's an event? An event is a collect. Guess what you can do? And you do this all the time, rather naturally. You can ignore events. The events are still there, but they're not your conscious mind. Okay? Now, you also can increase entanglement. In fact, in quantum mechanics, have equations for this, for subatomic. One of the things that's becoming more and more clear to me is a lot of the laws of mass that the physicists that we tend to use to describe the physical world work in this idea of consciousness that you're more entangled with. They have more energy. When you bring them back into your memory, they're more vivid. They get triggered more easily, okay? So this is the remote viewing session, and we're about to do that. But for your newbies, that's the place where you describe and sketch a future target. So you get quiet, you pick up subconscious into your conscious mind, and you write it on a transcript. That's what remote viewing is, okay? You're getting information based on your intent and confident expectation. So that's the remote viewing session, and that connects one time, and then later in time, you get to see the target. That's called the feedback session, okay? So ARV is all about entangling the remote viewing session with the feedback. All that information is out there, and you can increase, right? You see that? See how you can increase the entanglement? I did it with the press of a button. You need to work that to the actual target, which you get to do during your feedback session. So at the remote viewing session, you're going to get the information from your subconscious. During the feedback session, you're going to see the actual target. We use photographs. The key is that's how you increase the entanglement. You spend a lot of time with the feedback, you make it super real, and it can then entangle back, since everything is connected, it can tangle back with the remote viewing session between these two events. Now, just get another sense of what you're doing here. You're actually, this all involves you, which is so wonderful about this. This involves you with two different. So in some ways, this is like a telepathy, a precognitive telepathy when you're doing your remote viewing session, because all you're connecting up with is yourself. Okay, that's kind of cool. Questions or anything now? I mean, you know, this is a lot. Yeah, Joe?
Basically, what I think is being referred to in physics at the moment, information. If we're starting to acknowledge an incremental to reality, creation of reality, and it far supersedes much greater in the formula than even gravity is. And we're acknowledging the fact that all things are made what there are. Everything is.
Yep. In fact, this UCC, another name for it is all that is. that people use that term. Ingo might have referred to this as the matrix. It's not like it's ideas like this have been put out before. The idea of information being fundamental is the same as consciousness being fundamental, because what is
Wrap your head around the possibility that simple conscious, we possess the information that we act on for act live. It's possible that when we come into using the information we already know. In other words, we come into existence and leave existence, having arrived with and used all the information we knew before we arrived. In other words, remote viewing is simply consciousness and using it out of the source. In other words, out of order.
right? And that was what Einstein said, and I like that viewpoint. The knowing is an interesting part of this. Information is out there already. Bringing it up into your consciousness is the activity of life. So I agree, yeah.
It's not out there, it's in here.
Yes. I agree. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. You probably saw in the back this pair of die. Again, we'll do the approach that we'll use for the other 5 actual sporting events. I do want to add here, when you're doing the remote viewing session, we'll be doing that shortly, that's precognition and in you, but you're opening yourself up to experiencing that in now before you know it is known at the feedback time. That's where your true target is known for sure, and you'll be experiencing it then. But then, this is what the mindset is remote viewing session. You put information down. Where did it come from? It came from the feedback session. So the feedback session caused, in some fashion, for you to put that to view, have seen these terrific examples, and some of you will generate them during the next few days. But I think you've all seen these great examples of people. You know, Joe's done so many of them. Many of the people in app have done so many of them. In fact, I'll show you examples. But that's retrocausality, looking forward in time, precognition, causing something to go backward in time, which is already there, but we have to use words. It seems like it's retrocausal. So this is when you describe it, and it's retrocausal. Now, I want to show, and this is in many ways for the newbies, the kind of information that comes up in associative remote viewing, which we'll do shortly, but they're short set and learn how to do 30, 40 pages of information. In ARV, we're looking for 1 page, maybe 2 pages. That's the kind of information we want. We want to get the first impressions, what are called like a gestalt. When you finally get the target, when you first something is going to hit you about the big picture of the picture, not the fine details. There are people who do remote viewing with 30 pages. They can get enormously fine details. Joe does this to find missing persons. You know, you need to have fine details. For us, here's an example of a transcript. It says vehicle there. It's circular. This, of course, was done blind, spiraling downward, concave. The person who did this didn't know what they were doing. All they did was get subconscious. And here is that target. Okay? So you don't get it and don't expect to get it exactly right. And yet the idea of a vehicle isn't right, but well, you could see where the subconscious going, not being perfect yet, might say that. The circular ideas here, downward, concave, okay? And you get rather low-level words here. Put a helicopter, and you see where it says AOL, analytical overlay. One of the things you learn when you get into really watching between things coming from the subconscious, where the source is the UCC, up through your subconscious, and you get information that way. That's the golden information. In fact, when you have a surprise, be sure to pay attention to that. But whatever comes up, you write down. However, some of it tends to be intellectual. It's coming from your ego, high-level mind, your left brain, if you will. That we call analytical overlays, and for one thing, it gets rid of them, and you open yourself up to get more information. So that's what the AOL was on that transcript, and that's a good practice. Okay, same target. So we had multiple people do it, different pieces of this. So this is the same target. And notice what this person got. Got the geometry, right? In spades here. And got, look at these little prickly things. The things people, in fact, will get. Here's another one. And I know you can't read this, but this says sound of fabric flapping in the wind. Sound of fabric, right, flapping in the wind. And that's the other point I want to make to you very clearly. You have all of your senses functioning. The information that comes up from the UCC through your subconscious can activate your entire nervous system. So, you know, the sensations in some part of their body, write it down. You can smell things, you can taste things. Your whole nervous system is active. Look at this one, getting the prickly things. And this is the imagery the person got and put it on the body. Makes good sense. In terms of judging matches here, you can see you would give this a pretty good match. And there are other good words there as well. So the key here is just report what your sub provides. Don't think, analyze, just using your analytical one. Still report it, but put it on the right side of the page so later when you or someone else judges it, they'll know that you felt it was really coming from the analytical mind. Red, round, ooh, it must be a basketball. That could be a connection, right, AOL. Yeah, Joe? Yeah, this was done. No, I don't remember it. Yeah, we're going to. Exactly. And that, yeah, we'll get into how ARV makes a prediction right now. But remember, your target, and I do that. All of that is irrelevant from the perspective of your remote viewing session. All you're trying to do is describe the target. Uh-huh. Well, we're going to do it. Okay, just hold that quiet. We're getting very close. We're going to talk about independent versus self-judging, which speaks to just that question. But I don't want to quite do that yet. You probably can't read these words, but they're common words you use. You know, if you heard a sound, what kind of sound was it? You know, was it banging, chirping? I had one person, the target happened to be a big beehive with bees all around, and all over his transcript, he wrote buzz, buzz, buzz. So sounds, texture, smells, tastes. You can get all of these things. And then aesthetic impacts. You can pick up emotions. Now, you can ultimately learn to pick up the two types. They're the emotions that might be at the scene, happy, or your reaction to a scene where it might scare you. So the two kinds of reactions, and you can understand that distinction eventually. Uh-huh.
I just wanted to add, in addition to this, something if someone says, I taste anger, or I smell the color red, that's a mixing of the basic senses with the descriptor. That's probably going to be more right.
And that's like surprises as well. There's certain things like that where when the judge gets them, whether it's you or somebody else, you tend to give it more weight. Okay, so let's get into this prediction 0. On your sheet here, so what you have here is the 6, starting with 0 to 5 predictions we're going to do. This one is the dice prediction. And notice the A/B column. That becomes that. The other thing you probably didn't notice, and I'm going to show you now, is you see here, in each of these envelopes are 2 pictures. One is labeled A, one is labeled B. This is what associative remote viewing is all about. We do binary, just 2 choices. We've done up to 20. 2 possibilities on this sheet. For the first one, you can see A and B were randomly associated. A was associated with even, B is associated with odd. Somebody from the back of the room is going to throw one of those die, and it's going to come up either even or odd. So how would you go about predicting the throw of a die, right? That's what associative remote viewing is all about. The other sports one, similarly randomly associated with A and B, is over and under. So your job is going to be feedback time, but it'll be determined in this case by the throw of the die. If the die comes up even, what we'll show as the target will be the A photo. If it comes up odd, guess what? It'll be the B photo with the random die in between or a sports game in between. Okay, so that's what this tells you, and you can then fill out everything. And there's a coordinate there. The first coordinate is 473. Oh, we're going to put that on the white on there, but it's 473791. Now, typically, as I said, all the senses are available to you. Yeah, okay. A table, there are some examples of this. There are also blank sheets of paper. A lot of you, I know most of you use just blank sheets of paper by this point in time. Yeah. Beginning of this, be very open to getting what are called gestalts. So right now, we're getting ready to start. You should have a piece of paper, and I recommend saying out loud the coordinate. And first write it on the top of the page out loud, as that vibrates within you in a way that at feedback time, we're going to say it out loud as well. So we're trying to anchor all of this and make the entanglement stronger. So that's one way to do it. There are a lot of other things, and people come up with their own ways of increasing the entanglement. But one way is to do it, and you'll say it out loud later when you start your actual session. So it's 473791. Go ahead, say it. Come on, say it. Okay? And then you put your name, the date, and the time on the right over there. This has sort of become standard. So you've got the coordinate in the middle. And then when we actually start, typically people do a coordinate in what's called an ideogram, which is sort of like a little doodle. And again, it comes up out of nowhere. Examples you saw, some did, some didn't. And then you will proceed. But I'm going to say just a little bit more for the absolute newbies. The cue, which will be the same for every one of these except for the coordinate. You see the XXXXX there? That's the 6 digit. Conceptually very simple. Describe and sketch your, and in this case, 473791, feedback target. Notice I said feedback target. Hey, lots of things could be going on before you see your feedback target, but we'll do a special feedback session. It'll be clear when we're doing the feedback session, and you will see on the screen the picture. Okay? So what I'm about to do now is do a hemi-institute, and I usually give 10 minutes. I don't want to do that now because we don't quite have enough time. I'd like to finish and really spend time in the rest of this. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes. Remember this. So in 5 minutes, right now, you can begin setting your intention. And what's that intention? Describe and sketch what you see as your feedback target. Okay? And just expect the target is already out there. Joe said it, I said it, other people say it. It's out there. That's what you're going to describe. And how are you going to get that information? You're going to get quiet. That's why I'm giving you some time here. You'll take, sort of let the day-to-day stuff flow out. Let all this stuff I've been telling you now, let it flow out. It's kind of irrelevant while you're doing a remote viewing session. Your intention is, and feel comfortable that this is going to happen. Okay, that's just the link where you can do it. And I'll give you like a minute's notice, and I'm about to start it now. So you've got your 5 minutes now.